Hello everyone. Today I am going to talk about an important piece of prose prescribed for AECC English students following the CBCS syllabus. The chapter is titled Water, the Elixir of Life, and it is written by C.V. Raman. Let me present the screen and then we will go into the details of this wonderful chapter that tells us all about the importance of preserving water, which is also called blue gold. So definitely it must have immense significance or importance for our daily lives. Let me present the screen and then we will go further. Okay. Now, before we go into the text, we must talk a little bit about this stalwart of physics who received the Nobel Prize in 1930 for his discovery of the phenomenon known as Raman effect. So Chandrasekhara Venkata Raman received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1930. He was educated in Madras and served as a professor at Calcutta University. So what is the Raman effect? Let us talk a little bit about it. Actually, when incoming light, it strikes a dust-free and a transparent chemical compound, the light beams are scattered. That is, they have the same wavelength generally, but some of those light beams have different wavelength, different from the wavelength of the incoming beam. So when there is this difference in the wavelengths of the scattered light and the incoming light, then that is due to this phenomenon called the Raman effect. So we are not going to talk in detail about the Raman effect, but this is a significant contribution for which the writer of this text received the Nobel Prize. So definitely whatever he is going to tell us in this chapter must hold immense value. Let us go to the text now. C.V. Raman begins by saying that man has always looked for Amrita, which is a kind of divine drink that gives immortality. But he says that search for Amrita has never been successful. Why? He says that Amrita is something which is imaginary. So why not realize that we have a real elixir, a real Amrita, and that is all about us. That is part of our daily life, and that is water. Elixir, actually this term refers to a magical medicinal solution, which is understood to have very beneficial and magical effects. So water is an elixir and we do not realize it. We go after the Amrita, which is imaginary, as C.V. Raman says. So next, C.V. Raman talks about some kind of an experience that he had standing at the line which separates the Libyan desert from the Nile Valley. Now, he must have seen something like this, the two pictures that you see on the screen. On one side, there is the Libyan desert, where you see no trace of life. There is endless billowing sand. That is how the text goes. What is the meaning of billowing? Something which is moving or flowing outwards. So there is endless sand and no spot of life in the Libyan desert. But what do you see in the other picture? The Nile Valley. It is full of greenery and it is teeming with vegetation and life. Teeming with is an expression which means full of. So the Nile Valley is full of vegetation. There is greenery, there are trees of all kinds, and there is life, there is civilization. So here, C.V. Raman talks about how the river Nile is responsible for establishing Egypt. The civilization of Egypt has been entirely created by the water of the river Nile, the longest flowing river in Africa, according to C.V. Raman. So the only thing that differentiates the left picture from the right is blue gold, that is water of the river Nile. Now, the source of the Nile is still a mystery, and researchers are still trying to decide where exactly the Nile originates. But we know that it flows into the Mediterranean Ocean. And you see, how is the valley of the river Nile created? It is formed from something which we call silt, S-I-L-T. And what is silt? It is fine sand or clay or other material carried by running water and deposited as a sediment. So the Nile brings silt from Abyssinia, which we now call Ethiopia, and Central Africa, and it deposits the silt year after year in the channel through which the Nile flows into the Mediterranean. So to understand this chapter, this writer from C.V. Raman, we have to revise a lot of concepts of geography, and then we will be able to understand it in a better way. So then C.V. Raman goes on to say that water is the most potent and most wonderful of liquids. So what is the meaning of this word potent? Having a great power or influence. Naturally, C.V. Raman wants to say that water has played a very important role in shaping the course of Earth's history. Then, C.V. Raman talks about the beauty of water bodies. And this is something very beautiful in the prose that he writes. He talks about beautiful things like little streams trickling over the rocks, a little pond by the wayside where the cattle drink water and satisfy their thirst. Then he takes on the discussion to the concept of rain-fed tanks or rainwater tanks. So what are rain-fed tanks? Some examples of different kinds of rain-fed tanks you can see on screen. So water tanks which are used to collect and store rainwater runoff for later use, like watering gardens, agriculture, toilet use, etc. And these rain-fed tanks are also very important in saving us from droughts. So naturally, it is very important not to waste rainwater and to go for what we call rainwater harvesting. Now, though you will find rain-fed tanks in many parts of India, this is the most common in South India. Especially in Mysore, you will find that the practice of cultivating rice under rain-fed tanks is common. And that is something that C.V. Raman refers to. Though it is really sad that they are not being properly maintained, still rain-fed tanks are, something good so far as beauty is concerned, because C.V. Raman, though he is a man of physics, he also appreciates beauty. And he talks about the fact that when you see sun rising or setting over a rain-fed tank, the sight is very beautiful. So apart from being useful, rain-fed tanks are also beautiful. But sadly, they are not being properly maintained and they are neglected. And that is why we suffer from water shortages in various parts of India. Now, C.V. Raman also talks about the fact that the water in these rain-fed tanks is full of silt. And therefore, when you try to look into these tanks, they will seem shallow, not very deep. Why? Because the silt in the water, it reflects light back, and that is why the bottom of the tanks cannot be seen, but they are deep. They do not look deep, but they are deep. Now, C.V. Raman also tells us something really beautiful about water in a landscape being like eyes on a human face. So water on a landscape is like eyes on a human face. It changes as per the mood of the weather. The color of the water changes as per the mood of the weather. How? When the sun is shining, the water would look bright and gay. But when the sky is cloudy, the water would also look dark and gloomy, as in sad. The water also would look sad when the skies are full of clouds. What a beautiful thing to say, right? Then we go on to how from water, how soil is formed, and that is what leads to the formation of valleys. Okay. So river valleys, a valley that will be formed by the side of a river. Okay. So how is that formed? And then C.V. Raman also talks about the concept of alluvial soil. Okay. And alluvial soils are very fertile. So what kind of a soil is alluvial soil? It is the soil formed from loose clay or silt or sand that has been deposited by running water in a stream bed or flood plain or beach. Actually, a river bed, whenever you talk about a river bed, you must know that the word bed refers to the bottom of the river, the earthen ground of the river that it runs over. Okay. So why C.V. Raman talks about this alluvial soil or this deposit of clay or silt or sand that water carries is because he wants to hint at a very important property of water. What? The power to carry silt in suspension. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of carrying silt in suspension. What does this word mean? Suspension. It is a state in which particles are spread throughout a liquid or fluid. So throughout the body of flowing water, you will find these fine particles, okay, which we call silt. Now, here C.V. Raman talks of another term which is important for our understanding of why silt gets deposited, okay, and that term is catchment area. So what is a catchment area? It is the area from which rainfall flows into a river, okay. Now, here we also must understand why I told you, I just now told you why the color of water in rain-fed tanks is a little muddy because of the silt present in the water. Okay. So how does water carry silt? Now the finest particles, these fine particles, they remain floating within the liquid despite their greater density, and they are carried to greater distances. Okay. Now, when silt-laden water is carrying silt? When silt-laden water mixes with the salt water of the sea, there is a rapid precipitation of the suspended matter. So, I just told you that rainfall flows into the river, and then the river has to flow into the sea. Okay. So what happens when silt-laden water mixes with the salt water of the sea? There is precipitation of suspended matter. Suspended matter. Just now we talked of how silt is carried in suspension. Okay. So then what is precipitation? What is this phenomenon? Precipitation is that phenomenon where the substance carried in a liquid is caused to be deposited in the solid form. It will be separated from the liquid and it will be deposited in the solid form. Okay. Now, why C.V. Raman is talking about this phenomenon? He wants us to understand the phenomenon where the color of the water changes as a river keeps flowing into the sea. Okay, what happens? The color of the water changes successively. Successively means immediately one after the other. Okay, so color of the water changes successively from muddy red or brown of silt through varying shades of yellow and green, finally to the blue of the deep sea. So where the river would just be touching the sea, the water would be muddy red or brown because it has silt. Till now, it had not touched salt in the seawater. It was carrying silt in its own way. Okay. Now when the silt comes in contact with the salt, it will get deposited. So now no more that muddy look will be there. And as you know, suppose someone is going deep into the sea on a steamer or a boat, the person will see that the color moves from yellow to green and finally to deep blue. Okay, that means the precipitation of suspended matter is now complete. Okay. So this is something that C.V. Raman wants to hint at. Next, C.V. Raman talks about another important factor that we must keep in mind in connection with water. And that is the various geological processes that take place. Okay, so what are these geological processes and what is the connection of water with these geological processes? That is something he will now talk about. Okay, so let me just tell you a little about geological processes in general. Some phenomena like erosion, weathering, volcanic activity, earthquakes, okay, then groundwater formation, then glaciers, all these things, they come under geological processes. So what are these processes? They are dynamic actions or events that occur at the Earth's surface due to application of natural forces resulting from gravity, temperature changes, freezing and thawing, chemical reactions, shaking, and the agencies of wind and moving water, ice, and snow. So all these factors can be responsible for various geological processes or changes that happen at the Earth's surface. So when and where a force exceeds the strength of the Earth material, the material is changed by deformation or chemical reactions. So we see that the surface of the Earth is changed because of these processes. Now the two pictures that you see on screen, on the left side, we have the picture of a ravine. On the right side, we have the picture of a gully. Okay. So you see that the Earth's surface has been changed. Okay. So this change is not immediate. It is gradual, and there are various factors that bring about these changes. Okay. So what is the connection of water with these geological changes? There is a beneficial role. Beneficial role means a role that results in something good. So there is a good role that water has to play in various geological processes. And what is the result of that good role? Soil on the Earth's surface is formed from the rocks of its crust. Okay. So actually, you see, we need soil, right? So when water strikes rocks over the years, the rocks on the crust of Earth, it gives rise to soil because of the action of water, the consistent action of water over the years. Okay, so that is a beneficial role. But there is also a harmful role. Now, what is that harmful role? The destructive or harmful role is washing away the soil, which is the basis of all agriculture. Okay, so it definitely creates soil from rocks. Okay, but water also washes away the soil, and then agriculture won't be possible. So this washing away of soil is called soil erosion. Okay. So C.V. Raman says the problem of soil erosion is one of serious import in various countries and especially in many parts of India. Okay, serious import, IMPORT, it actually means importance or significance. Okay, so if soil erosion is significant, then what should we study about soil erosion? We should study the conditions under which soil erosion occurs, and we should also study the measures by which soil erosion can be checked. Okay, so C.V. Raman says that soil erosion occurs in steps. It happens in steps. Okay. Now, earlier steps or the beginning stages of soil erosion may not be noticed. Okay, and since those beginning steps are not noticeable, we do not do anything to stop soil erosion. Then the later stages, these things which you see on screen, ravines and gullies, okay, they happen, and then we can do nothing about it. Agriculture is impossible in these areas. Okay. So then, shouldn't we study why soil erosion is caused? Okay, so there are some principal causes and there are some contributory causes. Okay, So what are the principal causes, the important causes? Okay, see what is, let me first tell you the difference between principal causes and contributory causes. Principal causes are those which directly cause soil erosion. They are responsible for soil erosion. Contributory causes are those which directly do not cause soil erosion, but once soil is getting eroded, they help in increasing soil erosion. Now, do you understand? They contribute to soil erosion. Okay. But what are the principal causes? What are the things that cause soil erosion directly? One, sudden bursts of very heavy rain. So very heavy rainfall, it is directly responsible for soil erosion. It will simply wash away the soil. Then large runoff surplus water. So what is this term runoff? We have to understand it. RUN-OFF. What is water runoff? Surface runoff, okay, is the flow of water occurring on the ground surface when excess rainwater can no longer sufficiently rapidly be absorbed in the soil. So water can no more be absorbed in the soil. Okay, there has been so much of rain. So it is not getting absorbed. Then there will be surface runoff of water. So this can occur. Why does this happen? This can occur when the soil is saturated by water, full of water. It cannot take in more water. Okay. So when the soil is saturated by water to its full capacity and the rain arrives more quickly than the soil can absorb it, then there is runoff. And when there is surface runoff of water, also there is soil erosion. It will wash away the soil. Okay. So these are the two principal causes which C.V. Raman mentions. Then what are the contributory causes? Okay, they do not directly cause soil erosion, but they also provide conditions for soil erosion to increase. The slope of the land. Okay, if the slope is steep, then soil gets easily washed away. If there is a slope, the soil will be easily washed away. Okay, if it is level ground, then the erosion will be at a lesser rate. Okay, so slope of land, that is one contributory cause. Another, removal of the natural protective coat of vegetation. So if we remove the coat of vegetation, look at the word that is used, coat of vegetation. Okay, the layer of vegetation is important, and if we do not plant enough trees or if we cut trees, then the coat of vegetation, trees or plants or shrubs, okay, anything. So the coat of vegetation, that layer of vegetation will not be there and the soil will not be protected. Okay, that is one contributory cause. Another contributory cause is the existence of ruts, R-U-T-S, okay, ruts, along which water can flow with gathering speed and the absence of any checks to such flow. See, these ruts are created by heavy vehicles like trucks. You will see whenever they cross these muddy patches of land, they leave these ruts. And then if somehow water flows into them, the rain is heavy and water consistently flows through these ruts, then deep cuts are formed and they are never filled up. Okay, so then there is nothing to stop the water flow in those ruts. So that is how they contribute to soil erosion. Okay, so soil erosion is a menace to agriculture. It is a danger to agriculture. Okay, so naturally we need to pay attention to this problem of soil erosion, and we also need to take preventive action. Two things are important. One is paying attention, another is taking preventive action. So what are the different measures to check soil erosion or to prevent soil erosion? One, terracing of the land. So what is it like? Terracing of the land, it looks something like this, okay, where the land is cut in the form of steps. Okay, can you see those steps there? Okay, so these steps, they form a part of terrace farming. We call this terrace farming. So if there is rainfall or if water is flowing, the speed of flowing water will be checked, okay, or will be lessened by these steps. Water cannot flow fast like this. Had it been just a slope, water would have flown faster. But now the speed of water is checked by these little steps created, cut into the earth. Okay, so this is what we call terrace farming, and it is an important method of preventing soil erosion. Okay, now there is also something called contour farming. Now, how is this different from terrace farming? In terrace farming, we had steps. Okay, here the contours, I mean, these things that you see, something like parallel patches of vegetation. Okay, so these contours, they are created in the direction which is perpendicular to the slope. Okay, so it checks the slope of the land. Okay, so the slope is like this, there will, these patches will be like this. So it will be something like checking the slope of the land. But the difference is here steps are not created. Okay, here the patches, the parallel patches that you see, they are at the same level. So usually you will find these things there at the lower portion of the sloping land. Okay, so here you do not see steps, but you see these parallel patches of vegetation, and they are also responsible for checking the flow of water, because water will find it difficult to cross these parallel patches of vegetation. The vegetation will check the flow of water. Okay, so this is contour farming. Then construction of bunds. Bunds, you must know, you must have seen these bunds in fields which are there to check the flow of water and allow only that portion of water to be there which is necessary for the crop to grow. And sometimes you will also see that these bunds, which are usually, they are a kind of high rise in the particular field is created, a row of high rise land, and then there are also some stones which are placed there, and that is how you create bunds. So sometimes the bunds are created in that way where vegetation is possible on the bunds, then it will lead to greater prevention of soil erosion. Okay, so this is also a common practice of checking soil erosion. Then another thing which is important is we must plant different kinds of vegetation. Like here on this page you see some grass, you see some shrubs, some trees, and then there are also different kinds of trees which have roots that have different capabilities of holding the soil together. Okay, so if we have different kinds of vegetation together, a mixture of vegetation types, it prevents erosion in a more efficient way. Okay, so these are some of the ways in which we can prevent soil erosion. Okay, then yes, this is an important concept that C.V. Raman brings in, artesian well. Okay, actually he says that the most important source of water for us is artesian water. Okay, so what is artesian water? It is a kind of spring water, naturally occurring spring water that is sourced from underground aquifers. Now you have to remember this term, AQUIFER, aquifer. So what is an aquifer? Actually, aquifer is a storage of groundwater. What kind of a storage is it? An aquifer is formed when you see there is a layer of impermeable rock. That means rock which does not allow water to flow through it. Then there is a layer of permeable rock, that is water that allows water to flow through it. Then again there is a layer of impermeable rock. So a layer of permeable rock or a layer of porous rock, permeable rock or porous rock, these are terms which we use to refer to rocks which allow water to flow through them. Okay. So if there is one layer of such rock in between two impermeable layers, then you see water somehow comes in, water somehow seeps into those rocks which allow them to enter them. Okay, so then water in that layer will be stored between two layers of impermeable rock. Then in that layer, that is what we call an aquifer. Okay, in that layer, in an aquifer, the water has tremendous pressure, huge pressure. Okay, now what do we do? When we dig an artesian well, when the digging is deep enough to reach that aquifer, you see aquifer written there on the screen, in the layer of water which lies in between two impermeable layer of rocks. Okay, so when the artesian well, it is dug deep enough and it reaches that aquifer, you need not put a pump there to draw water out. Because of the huge pressure there, when it finds an opening, water will flow through the artesian well and it will come out on its own. That is why you don't need a water pump to bring out water from this kind of a well. And here, we see that artesian well is a very important source of this naturally occurring spring water. See, we might not dig an artesian well. There might be, geological processes that we talked about, like, a kind of shifting of the surface of the earth, because of which an opening was naturally brought in the impermeable layers of rock. So when that opening naturally happens, also water can come out. You need not dig a well for that. Whenever some kind of a naturally occurring event happens and there is a crack in the impermeable rock, the water which is under huge pressure, it will naturally come out of that crack. And sometimes it also takes the form of a geyser. Okay, so you see how beautiful the water looks here. We see it coming out from an artesian well. Okay, so C.V. Raman says that an important source of water is the artesian well. Okay, now apart from the artesian water, the ultimate source in all cases is rain or snowfall. Snowfall is not that common, so we depend heavily on rain. Indian agriculture mainly depends on seasonal rainfall. Hence, irregularity in rain is harmful for agriculture. Okay. So then, if we depend heavily on rain and rain can be irregular, then we must do something, right? We have rivers, we have streams, we have, just now I told you about underground water naturally occurring, spring water, we have all these things, right? So then it is our duty to understand the importance of naturally occurring water and then to harness the water. What is the meaning of harnessing? It means to control and make use. So we also need to control water. Why? Because sometimes the flow of water is harmful. We just discussed how water is responsible for a lot of soil erosion, and which is not a good thing for agriculture in India. Okay. So then what is our solution? We need to harness our naturally existing water. Okay. We need to control and then we need to make use of it. Okay. Then see, a lot of areas here we call scrub jungles. What are scrub jungles? They are rich with a variety of plants and other life forms which are native and wild. Okay, so if we have wild vegetation, then maybe civilization growing there, you cannot easily imagine it. So then how can scrub jungles be converted into areas where people can live in, where they can do agriculture and produce crops? Okay, all these things, how can that be done? Only when we harness water. Okay, so scrub jungles could be converted into fertile and prosperous country by well-planned harnessing of river water, not allowing it to be wasted. Okay, so we need to harness river water and we need to make good plans how to preserve water and how to control its flow and how to make use of it, how to stop its wastage, because it is blue gold. By now you must have realized why this term is used for water. Blue gold, elixir, amrita. Okay. So then what is an important thing to check water flow and water wastage? That is afforestation. Okay, it is the opposite of deforestation. Deforestation is the act of cutting trees and removing vegetative cover. Afforestation is the act of planting trees and allowing vegetation on the surface of the earth to prosper so that soil is conserved. Okay. So systematic planting of suitable trees in every possible areas. That is afforestation. But it does not stop there. Planting of trees also in impossible areas. That is also the aim of afforestation, and that is an interesting thing that C.V. Raman says, that we should plant trees in every possible areas and every possible area, and we should also plant trees in impossible areas. Okay. So then, development of civilized forests as distinguished from wild and untamed jungles. So when we channel water, we will have civilization as opposed to wild and untamed jungle. So then what are the uses of afforestation? It prevents excess rainwater from being wasted. Okay. Then it also checks soil erosion, prevents soil erosion. Then an important thing is that it provides cheap fuel. Okay, fuel which does not cost much. Why? Because once we learn, how afforestation provides fuel, we don't need to convert farmyard manure into fuel. Okay, that takes a lot of effort and it costs much. So afforestation also prevents wasteful conversion of farmyard manure into fuel. So it provides cheap fuel. So it is also cost effective, afforestation. Okay. So these are the important points that C.V. Raman talks about. Now, he also talks about some subsidiary. Subsidiary means secondary. Secondary means something which is less important than something else. Okay, so some subsidiary purposes of water conservation. See, the main purpose is what is the main purpose of water conservation? Hmm. The main purpose is to save water because water is essential for the life of both animals and trees. Okay. So we need water for survival. It should not be wasted. Then water conservation is also important for flourishing of agriculture. Okay, so water conservation, checking water flow, it prevents soil erosion and it helps in better agriculture. Why? Because rainfall is not that regular, it can be irregular, and if we know how to conserve water properly, then we will be able to provide irrigation when there won't be enough natural rainfall. Okay, so all these things are the primary purposes of water conservation, why we must save water. Then there are also some secondary purposes. What are those purposes? Development of internal waterways in India. Look at, how C.V. Raman is thinking about the uses of water and how water could help increase, trade and commerce in our country. Development of internal waterways, traveling by boats and barges. So people, if there are more, if water bodies are preserved, more waterways would be there in our country, like we have roadways and railways. Similarly, we would also have waterways. People would travel by boats and ships more and more, and also barges, barge. Okay, barge is actually a flat bottomed boat. It is a boat, but its bottom is flat, and usually it is used for carrying goods. Okay, like we have specific trains which only carry goods. Similarly, we have barges which carry things or goods, okay, through water bodies. Okay, so then this will also help in increasing the or enhancing the economy of the country. Then of course we have the development of hydroelectric power. Okay, hydroelectric power, electricity is produced. Then obviously that is a very important role which water plays. Development of hydroelectric power would tremendously improve the life of the countryside. Okay, not just of the cities, but of the countryside, because countryside or in these rural areas where you find a lot of water bodies, but the water there is not harnessed, is not made use of properly. Okay, so production of hydroelectric power would help those rural areas or those places in the countryside and enable rural economy to prosper. So C.V. Raman is talking not just about Indian economy in general. C.V. Raman is thinking about improving rural economy, and that is very important, because for a nation to prosper, its less privileged areas or the rural areas must also prosper. And how will they prosper? If these natural resources, water is one of them. Okay, if we utilize water which is available so freely in such areas, in rural areas, and use it for the benefit of the people living in those areas. Okay, so then rural economy would also prosper. It would also help to tap underground water to a great extent. Okay, so far as hydroelectric power is concerned. So here we come to the end of this very important text prescribed for the students of the second semester. Okay. C.V. Raman says, water is the commonest of liquids. It is the most common liquid that we see. It is also the most uncommon of all liquids. We cannot find something else like water Water is unique. You cannot find another liquid that you can compare with water and say that, yes, they have equal value. So in one sense, it is the commonest of liquids. It is found everywhere. In another sense, so far as its value or importance is concerned, it is the most uncommon of liquids. You will not find another liquid which is as valuable as water. So then, what are we waiting for? Shouldn't we preserve water whenever we see that a tap is running endlessly? Shouldn't we stop and turn off the tap so that we play our little role in preserving this blue gold which is responsible for all life on earth? So we can bring about changes in these little ways. And that is the intention of this great physicist in telling us so many things about water, its importance, its role in geological processes, its role in life and living, its role in creating civilizations, its role in economy, its role in prosperity. So many things we learn today. And C.V. Raman ends by saying that the investigation of the nature and properties of water is of highest scientific interest. And that is why research done on water is never enough. There is always more to find, and that is why research related to water still continues. And it must continue because water is the most valuable thing for all of us here on earth. Thank you.